The CES show floor is closed for business, and while I love Vegas, I also enjoy heading back home after a long week of covering tech. Jaime decided to hitch a ride back with me this year, and we thought it would be a great opportunity to capture our post-show conversations and turn them into this podcast you're about to hear. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the inane ramblings of two exhausted tech editorialists. And we are back on the interstate. Just got ourselves a burrito, so that was good times. Barstow's really good to me for a quick pit stop, get some food. And we are well into putting Las Vegas in the rearview mirror from CES 2017. I'm gonna get to go home again. You get to visit sunny Southern California. So that's
at least for a day.
That's gotta be nice for you, right? A little downtime before you have to head back out, right?
Indeed. Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely. I was stoked when you wanted to trek back with me. This drive. I enjoy this drive. This desert drive. I think it's a lot of fun. But it's always nicer to have someone to do bad karaoke sing-along with.
As I was telling you, I have always dreamed of doing this highway, and the last time that I was on a U.S. highway from one state to another was in 1998. No, sorry. Wait, it was worse. 1988.
Oh, just off by a decade, because that's the accuracy you can expect from Pocketnow.com.
Oh, yeah.
And Pocketnow-related accessories.
Oh, yeah.
So, CES 2017, we covered the show floor, you and me cutting up a whole bunch of videos. We were joined by Mr. Hayato Huseman, making a triumphant return to help us cover the show floor. He was a huge help.
Oh, yeah.
In getting some video produced. And
Such an awesome guy.
So much fun to hang out with. I mean,
Yeah.
So again, this was a number of firsts for me. This is my 7th CES, but my first actually covering it as part of a team.
Nice.
So getting to work with you, getting to work with Hayato, that was an excellent way to spend a couple days in Vegas. But kicking things off the bat, we had to produce a silly little video of it on our YouTube channel, but you were out there New Year's Day. Didn't it feel like not only was CES early this year, but those pre-briefs, the meetings, the PR contacts, all of that was even days ahead of the fact that CES was the earliest I think it's ever been scheduled.
And I'll tell you, the thing is, it's one thing that I discovered about 3 years ago, but and I really wanted to do, because the biggest problem with coming to Vegas is not being able to be a geek about it.
Yeah.
When it becomes a job and you really are not able to go to the show and actually enjoy the show for what it is.
All obligations.
Because you are stuck doing an insane amount of videos just to provide the coverage. And just to give you an idea, listeners, we are not there with an army. The standard outlet has a trailer and,
Although you're seeing fewer of those tables. You remember back in the day, you'd have that table for each outlet that would have like 30 producers and editorialists and everything. You're seeing a lot less of that at CES now.
So, we are a small operation, and in that small operation, we are everything. Nobody's holding our microphones or holding our cameras. It's literally our work from point A to point B. And that's something we obviously want to change over time, but at the current state, this is the way it is. And therefore, every single one of the videos that we do requires a significant amount of effort from us.
Yeah.
It's the reason why we try to keep these videos short, sweet, and to the point. I'm sure you watching appreciate it, because there's nothing worse than to have somebody just fill you up with jargon over, assumptions over a product that they haven't even tested.
Yeah, well, and especially because there was a bit of the show floor which felt like we were in Vaporware Alley.
Oh my God.
And then seeing people cut videos,
the cesspool, you mean?
The cesspool of Vaporware Alley.
The CES pool?
Because what I really wanted to do was cut 7 videos on Bluetooth connected garbage cans.
Of course.
But then to see videos of people covering the event and editorializing an experience that they obviously had not had.
Yeah.
Picking up cameras and saying, well, but normal people probably won't buy this thing because I've handled it for less than 5 minutes and I've decided that it's not cool enough for someone to buy and it's too expensive and worth it and thumbs up and should you buy it and comparison. When really it's just, this is the perfect opportunity to see what might be on the bleeding edge and to try and share just what that energy is like. But you don't need more than a couple minutes to express how that all goes down.
Exactly. I don't know, man. But hey, why don't we talk about the show?
Yeah, we should probably get to that. Because there were actually a few surprises for me. A few fun things, maybe a little outside of our normal scope of phone and tablet and wearable coverage.
I think we should actually change that scope. I mean,
I don't mind broadening it just a little bit, right?
This is something, by the way, listeners and viewers, we're not sure if this video is going to work, but we're trying. Hopefully it does. And if it does, you'll get to see us in our crazy Vegas bellies, trying to breathe after eating at Chipotle.
Yeah, Chipotle.
Yeah.
This podcast not sponsored by Chipotle.
Exactly. That's why I didn't mention the name correctly. I think that technology is evolving. Surely our smartphones are the center of our lives currently.
Exactly.
These are at some point, you remember when it was the computer.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's the smartphone. Companies still want to make it about the cloud, but if you're in a New York subway, the cloud is worth nothing.
Exactly.
So it still is the smartphone. But, obviously technology is evolving to smarter products that can do things specifically and that can do it better than a smartphone. An example would be a wearable and the way it helps you in fitness.
Exactly.
And CES has been a show that has focused more on these types of things. I love a lot of the changes that are happening, and then I don't love the fact that most of the show was about TVs as well.
Right. Well, and like to that same point, didn't you feel like we saw a lot of bastardization of industry buzz-termy VR, AR, stuff that didn't really exist? And I kind of feel like that does a huge disservice to consumers trying to find information. It was like when the big TV 3D boom was happening.
Oh my God.
And we didn't have 3D content.
And that crashed and burned so
bad. And so there's that fear, you're walking the halls at CES, that like, could the same thing happen with a technology that I think both of us are very hopeful will provide interesting experiences in the next sort of steps in mobile technology too.
I don't know why.
To see like people sort of abusing it,
I don't know.
I feel is kind of precious.
I don't know why, but I still have a problem with VR. What are your impressions of VR? Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? Or do you find it to be something cool that you just
you play with once and you kind of put it away?
And you kind of put it away. And from a normal human perspective, your case.
So I, being something of an outgoing individual who really values social experiences, I have a problem with the VR because it's so solitary.
Exactly.
Right? It is an experience of one. Now, that being said, I very much enjoy things like virtual cinema, where I can play a movie in a pair of VR goggles with some great headphones and feel like I have a movie theater all to myself.
Yeah.
But those are those one-off experiences. I don't try to consume, or I don't enjoy consuming all of my content in that closed off, singular perspective kind of feel. That to me starts to feel a little claustrophobic. Exactly. And that's why for me AR is more exciting, because it's about providing open experiences in the real world around you and hopefully giving us better tools to interact with data in the world around us so that I can maintain social experiences better.
Right.
So I totally appreciate why VR is so hot and why it's becoming such a buzz term and why people are so interested in it. But for me, it's used somewhat infrequently for those times I want to have that solitary experience. And lately, because we both work pretty busy schedules, we both have like other obligations outside of our work life, and set aside time to just be by myself and pump VR content into my brain isn't something that I get to do very often.
I will tell you this much. I am impressed over your opinion because I've never met a more mobile gamer than you. I have never met a person that plays... Okay, so it's... I like to play games.
Yeah.
But I don't really have... I'm not saying that you have the time, because we don't.
Right. Neither
of us do. But you actually enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas there are other things that I enjoy, like spending a little time at the gym, for example. And I block a certain amount of time to be able to do that, even if I have to wake up at 5. But my God, you love to play, dude. And for you to be a person that actually finds VR to be one of those things that's cool, but that is not socially well prepared yet.
Right.
I have to agree, man. I feel that even for hardcore gamers, there is this barrier in VR where you want to love it, but there is still that user experience barrier where you have to put on turn on the computer or turn on the smartphone, turn on the app, slide the phone,
Right.
Whereas, you know, it's hilarious how we've been playing with Snapchat spectacles lately. And what makes Snapchat spectacles so cool? The fact that, you know, the barrier between you and the product is simply putting it on.
Yeah. So just a little backstory here. We were, was it the first day of CES?
Yeah, the first day.
It was the very first day that CES was actually, the show floor was actually open. And we had a couple of meetings that we had to take, and there was the Xiaomi reveal, which unfortunately was a bit of a disappointment for us.
Yeah.
But about halfway through Xiaomi, Hayato gets the notification as to where the Snapchat booth, the little
oh my god,
kiosk,
and the guy goes ballistic.
And he goes nuts. So he leaves, he runs his ass from the Venetian to the Bellagio, which is no small trek to make on foot. And it was a 3-hour process for him to get there, wait in line, and buy a pair of spectacles. Which then, I mean, he was lighting up rooms when he would walk in, and people would like flock and be like, "Oh my God, are those the new Snapchat spectacles? Are you Snapchatting right now? Are you snapping? Can you snap me? You can snap for like 30 seconds? That's so amazing."
And think about it, what makes a spectacle special? Number one, the UI is really cool.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it would actually open me to actually want to use Snapchat.
I was saying the exact same thing. Like, if I have to take time to hold a phone to produce content,
they lost me there.
They lost me. But if I just have to go boop,
yeah,
and touch my glasses, and then I'm recording video, I think that's a lot more accessible.
Yes, but what I like the most about the spectacles is simply you put them on and you press a button.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about anything else. That's it.
Yeah.
And I feel that VR needs to make that leap into where the process of using VR doesn't have to be this humongous rig like the Vive, which I love, but is so difficult to set up. Or you have to wait, you know.
Or you have to dedicate, like, this is a near permanent installation in your home.
Yes.
Which that also takes resources and time and effort to properly to set up and to operate.
Yes, I do know for certain people that we know out there that VR porn is something. Yeah, I know there are some benefits and whatever, but I don't know. I feel that CES could have probably not shifted so much. My God, we saw different forms of things you could do with VR. Like, I don't know, we saw a few showstoppers, but I'm like, these are cool ideas, like sports and stuff like that. But is it really going to take off? Is that really what's going to make VR take off is the question that I'm asking myself.
Well, and I don't think it will. To your point, you know, like, we need to get to that point where VR can be as simple as putting on Snapchat spectacles. I agree, except for I think there is an argument to be made for a quality of the experience where if it takes effort to get the experience running, that the experience you get is so good.
Amazing.
So, like, if you've ever read Ready Player One, it's a book, a science fiction dystopian novel, and it's about a world where people do almost everything, business, school, interactions, digitally through some type of virtual reality.
Okay.
And so the process that they describe, you know, like, when you have the money, you get into these haptic suits and you sit in these special chairs and you're plugged into these really great monitors and displays, and like it completely encloses you and puts you into a world that is distinctly different from the world that you exist in.
Yeah.
Now, you know, if that's what I got out of VR and it took me like a couple minutes to put on the suit and put on the goggles and sit in the chair, and then I was magically transported to a place completely different from every sensory perception, then I feel like, yeah, okay, then the setup makes sense. Until then, you're right. I think I need something that's faster, quicker, to the point, more accessible, and easier to use.
I'll give you an example of where I feel that VR would have a good position but still doesn't exist. I hate running on the treadmill.
Yeah.
And any runner will tell you that the reason why they hate running on the treadmill is because they're literally running towards nothing, against nothing. They can't see anything. And,
same thing. I do a lot of workout. I do a lot of my workouts on an exercise.
Are those
bike.
The Rockies?
I'm
having a moment right now.
Right.
But...
So we're in what is this? We're on the I-15 South, and it's the high desert right now. If you're watching if we get this video out, you'll see like the windows are kind of fogging up because of just how much colder it is outside than it is in the car. But there are clouds. The sun's just peeking through. Snow-capped mountains off in the distance, and this is one of the reasons why I really love this drive.
Thank you for the invite, man.
Absolutely.
I love this.
We're leaving Nevada, so that's just nice. I love Vegas, but I can only take it for a couple days at a time.
I have to agree with that.
But then, you know, you get to see this as you're like cresting hilltops and stuff, and it's just a gorgeous drive.
Indeed. No, I think that VR, for example, for a cyclist who is injured and recovering from injury, and giving him the opportunity to cycle in a static cycle in his home with a VR headset that's giving him a road,
totally
gives him a purpose to train. I feel that there is a future for VR. Don't get me wrong. I feel that there will be a point where VR is going to be awesome. I just feel that there are a ton of social barriers, and that our lives are busy, you know?
Yeah.
Our lives are really busy, and some of us just really don't have the time to really just sit down, turn on the computer, set up everything, and then set up Steam and wait for the game to load and put the headset on. And then in that process, you lost nearly 15 to 20 minutes.
You know, to that point, I think one of the actual product releases that we saw, what I thought was very interesting psychologically.
Okay.
So we got to go hands-on with the Zenfone AR.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the Project Tango, the augmented reality feature of that phone, was disabled while we were on the show floor. And I think that was one of the biggest frustrations for people in the room trying to play with these phones. That's what they were most interested in checking out.
Yeah.
So they had all these kiosks. So what's cool about the Zenfone AR, for those of you who haven't seen our video, is that it's the first Tango and Daydream compatible phone.
Yeah.
So utilizing both Google's VR technology, so you can have that great Daydream headset with the controller, and their Tango augmented reality, where you can like overlay data and games and information on top of the real world. They had these kiosks all around the side of the hall with Daydream headsets, and you'd see a couple people there. One person would try on the headset and kind of play some games and stuff, and then they'd walk away, and everyone else was noticeably frustrated that they couldn't play with Tango.
Yeah.
That the augmented reality was really, for a lot of people, that was what was going to be the more interesting visual.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to, if I show you augmented reality on a phone, that's something that you can participate with.
Yes.
I'm controlling the experience, but you can still see what I'm doing.
Yes.
If I put my phone in a headset and I strap it to my face, you're gone.
Yes.
You can't see what I'm doing. You can hear me go, oh, wow. And that's even worse. Like when you were a kid and like your mom would make you share the Nintendo. You know, like you'd have to sit and watch someone play, and you're like, I'd rather be playing than watching someone play.
And you're about to take their controller off because they're
sucking at the game so bad.
They're sucking at the game so bad.
So VR is worse than that.
Yeah.
Because VR, you can't even watch them play.
No.
So that to me is again why I kind of feel like in the near term, AR is going to be more exciting.
That's what I was about to say. And to your point, the thing about AR is, I mean, it's been proven with Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Surely it's not as popular now as it was.
Definitely.
You know, I feel that every product goes through an inflection point where, you know, people actually get to the point of saying, and I feel that developers are experiencing this now more than ever, you know. They need to figure out ways to keep people engaged, but then there's also the fact that many developers want to make so much money.
Yeah.
And so it's that point where people, I mean, I'm a parent, I'm not going to be investing in having my kid play and burn my money.
Right.
I'm sorry, developers. I would rather you charge me $10 for Super Mario Run once, than have a variable that's just not going to let me want to allow my kids to play.
Well, and it makes you the bad guy.
Exactly.
Because Daddy won't let me buy the next level.
Exactly. But, you know, I feel that AR has more of a promise because in the end, it doesn't completely snap you away from reality.
Right.
And it augments the existing reality through visuals that don't necessarily disconnect you from the world, because that's also a social paradigm that's a problem.
Right.
But at the same time, it gives people a purpose to do something. So in Pokemon Go, it would have people, or in Ingress, it would have people follow to, you know, get Pokemon or etc. But it actually makes people active, it makes people move. It serves a ton of purposes.
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel that there are a ton of, you know, think about this. We all grew up imagining things. Mm-hmm. We all grew up imagining that the castle that we built in the beach is a true castle.
Right, yeah.
That the toys that we're playing with are true toys. That the blankets that we threw over our pillows are really the fortress that we just built in our room.
Right.
So imagine a future where two kids are playing with augmented reality goggles, and I can see what the other kid is building.
Oh, totally.
And we are actually building that imaginary world together.
Absolutely. I mean, it was with the promise of HoloLens, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff I think is very exciting for where we could go.
And I feel that products like Tango are actually going to enable that.
Well, and also in sharing experiences and telling stories. So, again, a little outside our normal coverage. We don't talk a lot about cameras, but I got to spend some time with a buddy of mine who works for Kodak, the PixPro team, and they have their new 4K 360-degree action camera.
Yeah.
And this team, because, you know, Kodak, they kind of licensed the Kodak name, but it's the PixPro developers. They were really early in having a horizontal 360-degree camera, but it didn't have the top and the bottom. So it was like a strip that you could look around, but if you looked down, there was no ground.
Like the Sony booth, which is the strip around.
Right.
I love that, by the way.
So, I mean, like, that's kind of cool, but obviously we want the full immersive spherical experience where you can look up and down and all around.
Yeah.
And so they finally released their first camera, which does that. And so I'm sitting there and playing with it, and there's this obviously, the first thing you think of is, oh, well, if I shoot video when we, you know, if we go to MWC and we work it as a team, and I shoot 360-degree video, I could send that to someone and they could look at it on like a VR headset. But then I got thinking, there's nothing really stopping them from having a meaningful experience just by looking it on their phone too.
Yeah.
You know, so even there, we're running into, I can still perfectly well tell this story or show these people what my experiences were, and not force them to like have to do it through proprietary hardware or a headset or anything like that. Literally, their phone can already do the job pretty well for me to share my story with them.
Think about this. If you're in a mall, is it easier for you to walk into a store and buy something, or if that store has a kiosk outside and you simply have to go to the kiosk, which is in the middle of the hallway?
Oof. I mean, obviously, like, the kiosk is immediately more accessible.
Exactly. Yeah. Many companies, and I've at least seen this in my country, many companies have their own stores, but they also invest in kiosks, because for certain people, walking into the store is a barrier.
Right.
And I feel that is the problem with VR right now. And as long as we can figure out a way to use our smartphones to become AR capable, visors, that in the future we have glasses like HoloLens or something that's a little more compact that allows augmented reality. I feel that that's the way to go. I really don't want to be pulled away from my reality. And sure, there are some games where you just want to be pulled, man.
Right.
I mean, for gaming purposes, I feel that
I really think it's the entertainment. The entertainment, and then there are some educational benefits that I think you could let's do a walking tour of an art museum, and you can do that in VR. But those, again, become very singular experiences, not like what I feel the core, like, it's not going to change how you use technology throughout the day. No. It's going to be that one thing I'm going to sit down to just do this one piece. Right. So, VR, again, that was a really long-winded way to say, like, VR on the CES show floor was interesting. We definitely saw some cool stuff. But I still feel we have some issues with content, getting consumers interested in it, and finding a good base of consumer usage before it feels like it's a passé fad. And
to be honest, that's probably the reason why we didn't cover it. It's the same hardware that we've seen last year.
Because we're waiting on content.
And all we're seeing is, this is the thing that I don't like about CES, and I think it's worth discussing. CES is full of a lot of things that will never happen. Yeah. A lot of companies that will tell you that their product is going to launch in Q3 or Q4 of 2017. Right. And then eventually we've seen so many cases of products that end up becoming vaporware. And it really requires us to sit down and say, is it really worth to cover this? Because number one, again, we're a small operation. We can't just come up and waste your time and waste our time in filming stuff that will not really happen. Exactly. And driving a desire over a product that won't happen. And we've had a few cases where we've filmed things that have never happened.
And because also, I mean, ultimately for us to still be working these gigs, like, we're tech optimists. Yeah. So we really want this stuff to be real.
We do, but at the same time, we have
to balance that against.
We have to balance that, and at the same time, we have to be like, okay, can this really happen? Right. Where does this stand, and is this really useful to the viewer and to the reader as well? Right. There were obviously, not everything was bad, obviously. I think that there were certain things about CES that...
well, first of all, I'll just say, I think this was one of the smoothest run shows I've been to in recent memory.
Yes, I feel that it was more organized than ever.
Absolutely.
I loved how, okay, so for example, for those of you that don't know, CES definitely happens at the Las Vegas Convention Center. But the first couple of days before the show begins, there are pre-shows happening the first 2 days in the Mandalay.
Yeah.
Then the following days in the Venetian. And so it makes our lives a lot easier. I remember when I used to come here 5 years ago, and everything was spread out. One company was in the Encore, the other was in the Venetian, the other was in the Wynn, and just the nightmare of having to commute from point A to point B was just crazy.
Yeah.
We are no longer going through that. We can just go from one point A to one point B. Probably our biggest struggle in getting our videos up is sadly, finding good internet speeds, finding good time to edit our videos, because obviously we've made that transition away from just putting a phone on a table and filming it.
Right.
We used to do that before, but we really don't.
We're trying to step that game up.
Yes, and one of the main reasons why we've done that is because those videos end up being 5-10 minutes long, where I remember so many cases where I would forget to mention something because I'm not looking at the press release, because I'm not looking at so many things, and I've never actually used the product.
And I'm just winging it.
Exactly.
I'm trying to, from memory, remember every talking point they said during the
presentation. So
we
we made the decision that it was the smartest to just go back and make an educated video. Straight to the point, that's direct, but obviously it requires more production time.
Exactly.
And that's really what takes our time. But to be honest with you, in addition to the way that it was organized, I did like the rebirth of certain brands to be pretty much announced in this event. I've told you, my favorite announcement at this event was really the new BlackBerry.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that a lot of people are just like, yeah, let's put BlackBerry to rest and let it die and all this. But for those of you, I think we owe so many things to BlackBerry that we can, I just don't want it to die.
Oh, completely. Like, the mobile industry wouldn't resemble anything like what we have today had it not been for
tell me
BlackBerry
something.
innovation.
You enjoy push email on your phone? Thank you, BlackBerry.
Right.
Yeah, I know that Microsoft had a lot to do with that, with the Exchange server. Do you enjoy, the way notification systems work today and the way applications are able to integrate with your smartphone?
BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Bam.
All this really begun mainly with how BlackBerry was able to do server-based communications. I remember there was a pre-BlackBerry where our PDAs would not even connect. They wouldn't even have connectivity, and there was a post-BlackBerry
Palm
era.
Sync and Active Sync and
Yes.
all of that mess?
It was a complete mess, and then BlackBerry came to change the way we communicate. So sure, Android and iOS now benefit from a more ubiquitous way to communicate, but all this really started from the glory days when BlackBerry really made this the mainstream.
Totally.
I know that BlackBerry didn't invent these things, but they made it the mainstream.
I mean, and again, in sort of our soliloquy there, it's the respect for the brand. Like, this is a brand that we want to see executed with dignity.
Exactly.
Like, we want to see them doing well. We want to see them delivering good products. And I think a lot of us were very concerned when, after the Priv, BlackBerry announced they were going to stop making their own hardware.
Yeah.
And where I'm totally in agreement with you, from what we saw at this show, is if they were going to pick any company to build their hardware,
I'm so happy they went for TCL.
TCL, I feel like they're in really good hands.
I am too.
I was totally won over last year with the Idol 3. I think the Idol 4 is a very well put together phone.
It's beautiful, man.
And then getting to hold the new QWERTY BlackBerry, which is not Project Mercury. That was hilarious to me. So we did this BlackBerry press meetup where
it was a private meeting.
It was a private meeting, and
who was it?
It wasn't the CEO of TCL.
No, it was the company's. No, it was the president, the U.S. president.
Oh, it was the president.
Steven.
Okay.
It's Steve, but I forget his last name. Such a cool guy.
Unfortunately, and we can't look it up because I'm driving.
Sorry.
No, but for him to point blank just call it the press, like, we have no idea where this code name Mercury comes from.
But hey, if you want to call it that, fine.
It's a cool name, but we did want you to know that this phone does exist.
Yeah, and we've got it here, and you're going to be able to see it.
I was just like, that was very frank and refreshing, and I'm glad we had this conversation. But I from the hardware perspective, whether or not BlackBerry's strategy can survive over the next couple years, this has actually given me some hope that they're in better hands for making good products. They'll have access to good hardware, and that hopefully BlackBerry, focusing on the software experience, can do something that will shake up consumers.
Now, I have two things to say about this. One of the main reasons why I'm positive over the change and the design of the new BlackBerry is mainly the fact that, I mean, phones are really becoming boring, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
we talk about commodity.
One of the things that I really loved about Windows Mobile in its day, and now Android, at the beginning of Android, was the different form factors. A lot of experimentation.
Oh yeah.
The fact that, you know, if you wanted a QWERTY keyboard, there was an option. If you wanted a slide-out QWERTY keyboard, there was an option. If you wanted an all-display, if you wanted a kickstand,
yeah.
I miss that HTC that brought us all these experiments. Sadly, we know that the market has drifted more into the touchscreen, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I love that there are companies that are still bold enough to say, you know what, we're still going to build this, and we're going to make it in a really cool way, where the keyboard becomes a navigation pad, where the spacebar becomes the
fingerprint scanner.
The fingerprint scanner. You know, so many things that are like, you know what, dude, if you want that keyboard, we got your back.
Well, and I feel like there's something important, sort of like tech culture, like tech culturally, to the notion of the one thumb experience.
Yeah.
Which I feel like Apple and Google haven't really satisfied.
No.
But BlackBerry was the champion of, without looking at the screen, as long as you took a minute to program a couple buttons on your keyboard, you could pull the phone out of your pocket, push in one button, long press it, and be making a phone call to a person without ever interacting with UI, without ever turning the screen on. That was my wife's biggest, she was a BlackBerry diehard user until it just finally died on her.
Which is the reason why I love the OnePlus 3 so much, because you're able to program the navigation buttons to do something extra when you press and hold or when you double tap. I'm sorry, but you know, buttons can do so many more things. I mean...
No, it's just for Google Assistant.
But you get my point.
No, I absolutely do.
I'm really optimistic. I guess my only concern, and we go back to the second point of BlackBerry, my concern is that what's happening right now with BlackBerry has happened before.
Yeah.
You remember Palm Source?
Absolutely.
You know, the moment when Palm branched out and said,
Palm 1 and Palm Source?
Palm 1 is going to be in charge of hardware, Palm Source is going to be in charge of the software, and that did not work.
Right.
Now, bear in mind, these are two different companies.
Absolutely.
This is not Palm branching into two things. This is BlackBerry licensing their hardware to TCL, which, in my opinion, you know, I feel that the BlackBerry D-Tech is a far better phone design-wise than the Priv, at least in hardware feel.
I agree. And if this means that the core developer base at BlackBerry can focus on executing the best possible software while delivering guidelines for the hardware that then TCL can execute, because I think TCL builds a better phone, then I think we'll have a happy marriage. And I'm really hopeful. I think my concern is, even throughout their discussion, we had a very candid and very frank discussion, which unfortunately we couldn't film. There was a lot of proprietary information, and so this was a very low-key meeting, but we did get to shoot the phone, which at least we were able to show that
and it's
off.
Still alive.
Right. It's like, we're not putting a horse down. I mean, but one of the concerns that I have is BlackBerry, in this discussion, BlackBerry seems to have like a notion of their corporate presence, and they've consistently had an idea of what they bring to businesses. What I feel that this brand has consistently failed to execute on
is the consumer base.
Is how do you appeal to consumers? Because right now, the death of a company that focuses on the corporate market is watching a number of businesses go bring your own device.
And we've seen it with Microsoft. We've seen it with Microsoft.
If the company isn't going to issue a phone, then they're definitely not going to issue BlackBerries, right? And if the consumer gets to pick whatever phone they want, how does BlackBerry join the conversation and take a seat at the table where a consumer will be likely to pick between a Galaxy, an iPhone, an LG, an HTC, a Huawei, or a BlackBerry? And that's where I feel like their strategy is still in a little peril. Is I haven't heard them say, here's how we're going to do our outreach. Here's how we're going to put devices in people's hands just so they can play with them and see that the phones do actually exist.
And yes, we do agree. You know, I do understand in the case of Microsoft. Yes, they were making so much money from enterprise that's what they wanted to focus on. And we've seen it with companies like IBM, who no longer makes hardware.
None at all.
You know, we've seen it now with BlackBerry. It doesn't want to make hardware. They want to give that to another expert. The problem is that, you know, these companies that have done this have succumbed into the problem that, you know, consumers are now having better hardware in certain cases than even than even the enterprise.
Yeah.
And people, as more we go into that concept of bring your own device, they were seeing that problem, and we've seen Microsoft evolve into the cool company that I fell in love with so many years ago. Thank you, Microsoft, for making that change into returning into a cool company.
Right.
I missed you.
And what did they have to do? They had to start looking again at hardware. They had to
look at hardware.
Doing direct consumer outreach. They learned a lot of lessons from Xbox.
Yeah.
And they've been slowly. I still think Microsoft has some issues when it comes to talking to consumers. But how much better are they at that job than they were 5 years ago? Right.
Agreed.
We see a completely different Microsoft when it comes to appealing to consumers. And a Microsoft that's much savvier, much smarter about targeting specific usage and demographics. So like artists with the Surface campaign.
Yes.
Instead of having a bunch of people dancing with tablets, like how they started trying to sell the Surface.
Yeah.
What also failed for LG with the V20. Let's have people dance. Now they're appealing emotionally and rationally in every commercial.
Exactly. Show me why your product is useful.
And show me why I should care.
Yes.
So it's the heart and the mind.
Yes.
And they're doing such a much better job. Yes. And so then I worry a company like BlackBerry, they've got the rationale, all the rational there. They've got the mind part of it, security, corporate infrastructure, business, protecting your data. Those are things I think most people, when you ask them, hey, do you care about protecting your data? They're going to go, yes, I do. Yes. I would like to have good tools to do that.
But I don't want it to be a black phone that looks ugly.
I was like, I don't want it to be a BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking of the BlackBerry from 7 years ago, not from what the company does today.
I think people are soured here about that topic. But anyways, we talked about VR, which I know was one of the things that you didn't really like from the show. I talked about BlackBerry, which is what I did like.
Yeah.
Going back to, for example, things that I didn't like from the show, and we will tell you this much, why, there were cases where we come to CES and have done 40 videos. CES continues to be less and less a smartphone show.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trying to understand why companies are doing this. Right now, the window for the world into the internet technology and just about everything is their smartphones. Why is CES moving away from this, or why are OEMs moving away from showcasing their products at the biggest consumer electronics show in the world? Is something I don't understand.
Well, so I think in part, because I'm not going to lay the blame, I'm not going to play the blame game. No. But I think companies like Apple did a very good job of demonstrating why, if you're a premier manufacturer, why you can draw your own audience, right? Yeah. And then I feel a company like Samsung as a competitor was able to follow in some of that idea.
Yes.
If Samsung has an event, we went out to New York to go cover the Note 7.
Yeah.
It wasn't attached to any other media or trade show. So Samsung has been emboldened by the fact that they can draw their own crowd. And I feel more and more manufacturers are saying, why should we share the limelight with an electronics show where our message might get lost in some wacky shenanigan that happens? We could announce our product today, and then Jean Leger could do something crazy on Twitter, and we'd have to compete at CES with that kind of coverage,
Makes sense.
Instead, let me wait a week, HTC, and then they'll be able, I'm hoping HTC delivers something cool. I don't know. They weren't at CES, so I'm in the waiting game to see what they do, right?
We'll see. But I guess I feel that obviously we are mobile oriented.
Yeah.
And I guess that's probably one of the reasons. And hey, if you're watching this or if you're listening to this, we should engage in that conversation, and we would love to read in the comments from you. Do you think that we should start branching out into other things? I mean, there is IoT, which is not necessarily something you put in your pocket, but that connects to a certain degree as an accessory to your home, to your smartphone, sorry. Yeah. I feel that we should start branching out into a couple of things like IoT. Sure, there are certain vehicle technologies that have nothing to do with mobile, but that connect with your mobile device.
Exactly.
So, we've been seriously considering it because in shows like CES, that's really what you're there to cover.
Right.
I mean, unless you want to really film the Android-powered toaster, or the Twitter-powered refrigerator.
Oh, no.
There's really not much else to cover. I mean, our show is really MWC.
Yeah.
I mean, MWC is really our show because it's literally the Mobile World Congress.
Yeah.
But, you know, I really would love... I remember when I came... I remember the first time that I came to Vegas. I literally did 27 videos.
Yeah.
And I think I ran out of time to film more. I mean, AT&T announced 4 phones in conjunction with HTC.
Yeah.
Back then. Then Verizon launched their new Droid lineup. You know, U.S. carriers would use this show to launch their carrier variants of specifics. Yeah. And these were new products that they would have exclusives for that eventually came in unlocked variants for others. We're not even seeing that from U.S. carriers anymore.
And then even thinking years past, like when we had Lumia 920s finally hitting the United States, and going hands-on at. So I got to do a pre-brief. I think it was one of the restaurants in the Venetian.
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden, this Lumia 920 just shows up on the table, and like there's 6 of us from a Nokia blogging group, and we're all just like, I'm gonna play with this phone. And we don't have those kinds of experiences anymore. We don't, because that was just one company, and so many other manufacturers and carriers were doing the same thing.
That was CES for us in the past, and I don't know. I did not see that in this show.
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Now, what did you like? Because I already said the BlackBerry.
Well, I mean, you know, like Zenfone AR, I think was a very positive step forward. ASUS is a company that I have very little experience with as a smartphone manufacturer. So we reviewed the Zenfone 3 Deluxe a couple weeks before the end of the year, and I was very pleasantly surprised with the experience. And so to see them capitalizing on 2 very forward-thinking technologies, AR and VR, in one phone, I think has a lot of promise.
Dude, 8 gigabytes of RAM.
I know.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, like, you're really getting prepped for what these future services might require, right?
I think that Project Tango is being served it's being given justice with this Zenfone, mainly because, think about it, that Lenovo phone that you reviewed was a Snapdragon, 652?
652.
How many? 3 gigs of RAM?
Oh, I think it was 4 gigs of RAM.
Yes, but you know.
But I mean, we're talking like those are upper mid-ranger specs, and it ran well. But I want to see what this can do on some flagship
on powerful hardware, because that didn't mean that it wasn't clunky.
Oh no. Well, and I mean, a lot of the clunkiness was really in like the phone side of the equation, which didn't feel very well polished.
Right.
And it's a big device for it to not feel smooth and powerful and ready to perform. But now I think this will be the first real consumer test of Tango. Yeah. I think ASUS now can kind of bring a little bit more visibility to the technology. It's a 5.7-inch device, not a 6.4-inch screen. You know, this in many ways, accessibility becomes a word that I like for what this phone had to offer. Of course, the other thing that I got really lit up about, again, outside our purview, was that Kodak Super 8 camera.
Oh my God. I think
analog's coming back.
Did you dream with that thing, by the way?
Oh, I was lusting after that camera so
God,
hard.
because this guy has not stopped talking about that camera since yesterday.
So I mean, like, I grew up playing with film cameras. Shooting little movies that I don't even think I ever got to see because processing film is expensive. And to see a company bring back film stock, they're bringing back Ektachrome film.
Yeah.
And then bring some updated features to what is, you know. Back in the day, a Super 8 camera was what was accessible to consumers to capture moving images.
Yes.
We all weren't walking around with video production equipment that fit in our pocket.
No.
And so getting back to some of that run and gun mentality, short bursts of 8mm film, and giving us an LCD viewfinder so we can compose our shots like we would with a modern camera. A jog dial to go through the settings, to control those settings, audio inputs, all that fun stuff. I mean, that was a really compelling product. A little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of updated, some modern day tech, smash it together, and it's peanut butter jelly time.
But hey, I mean, it's time when vinyl is making a comeback.
Yeah.
I think that there are certain technologies that should have not succumbed to digital. I mean, that product in particular, I'm really glad that the cassette tape is dead. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
that was a terrible experience. But there are certain things that should still exist, even if these are niche products for certain people.
Totally.
But there are some benefits, man.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so one, archival.
Yes.
When you shoot on film and you get it processed, you get this little brick of your film back, which you can properly archive, and that will be accessible through future generations of products. They also, like, I just thought it was cool, like, when you pay to have your film processed, they'll do a 4K video scan for you.
That is cool.
Which is awesome. So, I mean, it really was for me, like, this is the best of both worlds. You could shoot on film and work it very quickly into a digital workflow with very little obstacle, with very little barrier to the consumer. That to me was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I just thought it was such a well thought out, such a well fleshed out presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was definitely cool. You know what product I did like, just moving away from, you know, out of products in our scope?
Right.
One product that I actually did like was the Casio, the smartwatch.
I didn't get a chance to see that.
Okay, so here's the thing. When I was at the booth last year, obviously they promised us a ton of things.
Yeah.
No, this WSDF10 is going to, you know, it's going to be the perfect outdoor smartwatch that will give you a barometer, altimeter. And so here's the thing. I am a licensed flight dispatcher, so I actually know what a barometer is, and I actually know how to read it. I actually know what an altimeter is.
Isn't a barometer the little flap of plastic that replaced the headphone jack inside the iPhone 7? Isn't that valve?
I think so, man. I don't know. But the point is, I was really stoked to actually get real-time, in the moment, in my wrist, barometric pressure information that I will know, okay, what are the possibilities of rain? Oh, okay, we're low right now. So, okay, so, all right, you know. So I know these things, and I know how to measure these things, and for me, this was going to be like the ultimate watch.
Right.
You know, go out for a hike and just enjoy the experience, but not have to worry about so many things because the watch is able to provide these for me. You know what the problem was? They didn't add a GPS to that thing. So I am like, all right, let me get this straight.
Right.
How exactly is this an outdoor smartwatch if it doesn't provide me whack?
Right.
And so I remember they sent me the review unit, and one of the main reasons why I did not do the review is because I was very underwhelmed, because a lot of things were promised to me in the booth, and the watch just didn't deliver when I started using it. Right. I remember that in the booth, they showed me the application with so many training options, so you can actually use it as a fitness watch and at the same time use it as an outdoor watch, and sadly that was not the case when I received the final product. And so it was nice for me to actually go to the booth and see the watch working. Like, one of the cool things is, because it runs Android Wear 2, it actually allows standalone applications.
Yeah.
So one of those standalone applications allows it to connect to a Casio camera, and for the viewfinder to be your. So right now, it took us a while to set up this GoPro, because it took me forever to set up this, set up the iPad and try to see if we were seeing each other. And in the end, I could not do that, by the way. We hope that the video is going to come out
We have
fine.
no idea.
We have no idea.
It's an experiment.
But the second thing was, for example, because these are standalone applications, one of them is, if you're going on a trail, it allows you to interact with the map directly.
Yeah.
To set up points in the map directly, breadcrumbs to absolutely everything, and for you to define, oh, this was a nice area that I liked, this was this was that. Give the smartwatch actually usefulness.
Right.
The third thing was that I loved about this, okay, because you have a barometric pressure indicator on the watch in addition to an altimeter, and it's got a lot of other sensors. It's actually capable of detecting. Let's just say that you had it's funny, when I saw last year that it was capable of helping you track fishing, I'm like, fishing? Why on earth would I care about this? So here's what the smartwatch does that I was like, oh my God, this is genius. You know that the conditions for fishing have a lot to do with the environment.
Yeah.
And so what it does is, if you go out fishing, let's say you fish and you're done, the watch will ask you if this was a good fishing day.
Oh.
And so you will log those times, and over time, the application will, in that area, start detecting when the barometric pressure and temperature are exactly that during that specific time that you had a good fishing day. Yeah. And the watch will alert you and say, this is a good time to go fish.
So, again, I think this is going to be the hallmark of Web 4.0.
Yeah.
Like there was all that buzz around Web 2.0, and I kind of feel like we're in Web 3, whatever. But this notion of learning, of acquiring data, not just to acquire a ton of data,
but true artificial intelligence.
But then to start making predictions, to start explaining, how things are functioning in nature, stuff like that, I think is going to be very promising.
Because I'll tell you this much, for me, you know, obviously I've been injured and I haven't been able to run, and that's the reason why I look like a blob right now. But
we got some dad bod going on in this car right now.
Oh my God. But the thing is, to be honest with you, running for me has a lot to do with the environment. I sweat like a beast, and therefore I can't just go run at noon.
Right.
I will literally dehydrate by the 3rd mile and hate the run.
Yeah.
So I really do depend on good temperature, you know, not crazy winds, which are very common where I'm from.
Yeah.
And all these things, if I could have a product that could tell me this is a good time to go run.
Right.
Or if I could tell it, if I could just end the run right now and tell it, you know what, this was a great run. It felt delicious, the day was beautiful. And if the watch could at some point tell me at 3 p.m. or at 4 p.m. or at 5 p.m. or tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Right.
weather conditions are pointing to this, oh my God.
Well, and then for the watch to know, like, hey, based on your previous runs, this would be optimal weather for you to go work out.
Exactly.
Bam, I'm on it. Absolutely.
Exactly. So I really love that concept. Obviously, we're going to have to wait until April 21st for that watch to launch. And I am assuming, by the way, this is not a plug because we don't really know, but you know, this could mean that Google actually plans to launch their Android Wear smartwatches before that time frame.
Yeah, I would hope
because
so.
Apparently, dude, from the way I saw the software, everything worked just fine.
Well, and especially just with Google's recent strategies, like, you know, LG claiming that they were going to be the first nougat phone and then the Pixel beating it to market in a lot of regions. Like, I kind of feel if we're starting to see partners talking about their own device distribution strategy, that Google's probably going to want to be ahead of the conversation for what they have to offer too.
Exactly.
So one of the other interesting things that I thought was, I mean, it wasn't a new device, but we did spend some time with Huawei.
Okay, yeah.
And we finally got pricing information on the United States release for the Mate 9.
And I got me a Mate 9.
You finally got him a Mate 9. I've been bragging up this phone for so long. He's so pissed off, and like I let you hold it, and then I just take it right back and like go back to.
I hate you sometimes because this guy would. Okay, so you know, one of the reasons why it's been such an honor to have you in the team, Juan, is obviously when we started looking into your resume, into your videos, you know, your expertise in photography, your expertise in audio. For you to tell me that this thing takes amazing photos is an amazing reason for me to be like, yeah, I need to go buy that.
I need that phone.
And so I'm not gonna lie, I was really stoked when I received the Honor 8.
Yeah.
I'm sad that I couldn't spend too much time with it. And so I really, really wanted to test that Mate 9.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were the one that were able to go to Munich, to the launch. But I was like, oh my God, I really cannot wait. Obviously, for us to get review units really depends on the market availability of a product.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously we could not get another Mate 9 review unit, and it was not easy for me, but I can't stress enough how much I cannot wait to go take some really good photos with that phone.
Yeah. Really exciting. And then to hear that the United States release is going to be $599.
Yeah.
Which is, like, that's an incredible price point for what I feel is a very competitive premium experience.
And, you know, by the way, I was the type of, I really hated EMUI.
Yep.
But I do love the approach that they're doing to Nougat.
Yep.
Where they're adding an app tray. Where
they're walking back a lot of the more extreme. I mean, so it's still like
I don't like the UI elements, like the design of the icons and stuff like that.
But all of the pieces are back where they belong.
All the pieces are back where they belong.
I'm okay with.
And by the way, you have the option of removing the app tray. Don't laugh at me, but I am the one that did that. I actually don't like the app tray. Shut up. Don't get me wrong. I don't like the app tray. I prefer to have things all organized in folders. And you know, I'll explain to you why I don't like the app tray. The problem with that is I love to have, like, for example, stores, Amazon, Best Buy,
right,
all these apps into one folder, all these other apps into another folder. And the problem with having an app tray is I usually forget to add all the stores into one folder.
Yeah.
And so there comes a point where I'm looking for the Best Buy app and it's muscle memory for me to go to the store icon. And, you know, when I least expect it, I'm like, oh, I didn't add the Amazon app. And so it forces me to go into the app tray and yada, 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 and this and that. So I'm sorry, I don't like the app tray.
I understand. And like, for me, it's the opposite issue where I like a very simple, clean, direct to the key services that I use. And then if I need to pull up an app that maybe I only use once a week, I can pull up the app drawer, and that's where I know that app lives.
And that is the other reason. I end up cluttered with applications when I have the app tray, and then I have to be sliding all the way.
Things.
And then I have to be sliding all the way down, etc. But yeah, the Mate 9 is definitely, that announcement was good. We had an opportunity to talk to Huawei executives. It was really cool to learn the background of some of them. For example, I really forgot the name of the VP. She was extremely, such a lady, such an amazing
she was an amazing person to have a conversation with.
Amazing person to have a conversation with.
And her background in smartphone and mobile
her
was
background
incredible.
was from Motorola. We had such a nostalgic conversation over the Droid campaign, which she was part of that launch.
With Verizon,
And we have to give props to the Droid campaign because Android is what it is thanks to that campaign.
Oh, absolutely. Man, you still hear people calling them droids.
Calling them droids. I mean, that's what you call a good marketing campaign.
Right.
You know, and I have to give props to people when they've been part of such a crucial moment in, you know, the way technology has evolved.
Yeah.
And let's just face it, Android is what it is thanks to Motorola, Verizon, back in the day.
Totally.
They were the ones that put it in the map. So sad to see these companies go. I still find Motorola's call quality to be the best.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree. It's just we also now live in an era where, you know, for a smartphone, the phone is just an app, which might be one of the least used apps on someone's smartphone. So it's unfortunate that that's the way certain companies kind of get taken down.
There were other things that were cool at CES that we actually didn't have a chance to cover because, again, these are products that are still not close to market. Like, for example, you remember the camera that I told you that could snap into your sunglasses?
Yeah.
And that you could use it sort of like you know, Snapchat spectacles.
Totally. And also a little like Google Glasses implementation.
Exactly. And it has a little light indicator for people to know that you're recording. It can take photos. Everything was fine up until they told me that it can only record 2 minutes of video. Wait a second. And it records 2 minutes of video and it runs out of battery.
Oh, so it wasn't even like a storage or a buffer.
No.
The battery could only last for 2 minutes of recording.
For 2 minutes of video recording or 100 photos.
You know what I always thought was a bummer about Google Glass, and maybe something that would have helped them there too, is how Google Glass was asymmetrical. You know, it was like one really thick side and like one really thin. Why not make two thick sides and have twice as much battery? Yeah. You know, if that's really your problem, there's a solution for that. And I feel symmetry makes the product look better than
you walk into a room.
Possible.
You walk into a room, and if something is slanted, you automatically notice it.
Right.
And it gives and it becomes. I'm sorry. I'm the type of guy.
You can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. It's right there. Exactly. But yeah, man, I feel, again, CES was a good show.
It was a good show.
But, you know, I guess I was expecting some sort of a surprise from somebody. I did get it particularly from BlackBerry. I'm trying to remember, there was this other product that I liked. Oh, yeah. So this is interesting. I had the opportunity and the privilege to be a judge at Showstoppers.
Yeah, that looked like it was fun.
For different categories. And so there was one of the categories that I had to judge. I'm not going to mention the name of the product because it's still on production. It's an amazing concept where it's a hard drive. It runs on an Exynos 7420, which is the processor of the Galaxy S6.
Oh, okay.
It's got a very speedy hard drive that's still not in the market. I'm trying to remember what other things it has, but literally it's like a hub, like an old-time capsule only on steroids. And so what it does is you can connect up to 30 people to either watch the same movie or play the same music, and it all happens in real time, and everything is fine. The only problem was the price tag.
How much?
$350 for a 250 gigabyte storage drive. I'm like,
yeah, that's a bit steep.
Okay, I know solid state drives are expensive, but their price has really dropped.
Right.
And I know that there is a lot of technology that makes this product special. It's IP68 water and dust resistant.
There are plenty of things that you can say, but I also look at what's the little? You got the little Samsung solid state.
Oh yeah, the
external drive.
The T3.
That's
$100 for 250 gigs.
I kind of feel like maybe that's if I need storage, and I know I don't get all the hub benefits and stuff, but if I just need the gigabytes, then maybe that's a better use of my funds.
I feel that there are certain products that are just overpriced. I'm not saying that the R&D is not worth it. I'm not saying that, because this is the first generation product that it doesn't require funding. I do get all these things. The problem is, when you approach the market at such a steep price, you automatically kill all the reasons why.
Oh, totally.
And it stops becoming a point of whether it's worth it or not. No, it's the fact that the consumer just won't care.
Yeah. So one other trend, one of the last things that I like, because we should probably wrap this up because we're actually getting close to being home.
Cool.
One of the other trends that I thought was really interesting, but there wasn't anything that we could really show. Like I couldn't shoot video of it. But at a number of booths, there were people talking about higher quality audio.
Oh, yeah.
And also hearing protection.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very interesting trend, getting people away from using just whatever gut rot cheap earbuds came with their phone and looking at ways that they can bring higher quality solutions, better noise canceling. Or there was a little French company at Showstoppers while you were off judging. I had this great chat with this Frenchman who was trying so hard to help the dumb American, So the little box that we have is 5 by 8 centimeters. What is that in inches? And you're like, no, I can follow you on centimeters. It's okay. It's okay.
That accent of yours is awesome.
Well, he was so sweet. Like he was trying to explain his product, and then realizing oh, you're an American. You don't know about centimeters. It was really funny because it's so French too.
All right, do the accent again for the record.
So the box is 5 by 8 centimeters. And what is that in inches? Because you're American. But so he was building this company. I believe it was called Inspire. I couldn't decipher what the pronunciation of the company was, but about trying to get custom molded earpieces to consumers in a really accessible way. Because if you have earbuds and you kind of just wedge into your ear, you're not really properly sealing the ear all the time. A lot of people will wear them improperly. But if you mold the ear and it fits perfectly, it's so much better for your hearing. You can listen to your music quieter. You don't have to crank the volume as high. It's why I've been very frustrated with the companies that follow Apple EarPod design. I know EarPods probably sound fine, but there's no seal. So you instantly have to turn the volume up, and that's bad for your hearing. And you can tell me...
Those things fall off my ear all the time.
And you can tell me, oh, well, yeah, but they're inexpensive and they sound good. And that's great. So because Apple gave you cheap earbuds, how much will a hearing aid cost you when you're in your 40s?
Exactly.
Right? Because hearing aids aren't covered by insurance.
No.
So maybe do the math on that before you blow out your ears in your 20s because you got free earbuds with your phone. So that was one example, but I saw a number of companies, and there was just no way to shoot video of this, but improving the way that we do active noise cancellation on headphones and headsets, improving the way that we can seal the ears so that you don't have as much environmental noise, and then companies that are looking at just making audio sound prettier.
Good.
So that you have a more enjoyable listening experience.
Well, you're an audiophile. I imagine that was a good experience.
It's one of those things, you give someone a nicer tool, and they might not sit here and wax poetic like I will, but then if you take that tool away, they notice.
And I will tell you this much. I do enjoy when companies actually take the experience of sound seriously for you. Like the LG V20, the OnePlus 3. I mean... I'm sorry.
Axon 7. Axon 7.
Yes.
CTE, we got to meet with them this
We got to meet with them as well. I mean, it's funny because I actually didn't think that it's funny because I personally know the guy that's in charge of Project CSX.
Yeah.
I thought that making a crowdfunded phone was not going to take off, but dude, that hardware was really cool.
What they had to show us in person, I was very impressed with what.
I was very proud of Jeff. I know the guy personally. Such an amazing guy. The ZTE team, such amazing individuals. A very young company. But ZTE is not young, but the people that are in charge of their mobile department are young people.
Well,
very
you can see they're very dynamic.
And they're very passionate. And I have a lot of respect, mainly because this is one of those companies that doesn't. If you didn't know, most of the LTE patents belong to ZTE.
Yeah.
Pretty much LTE networks are enabled by two companies, ZTE and Huawei.
Yeah.
ZTE being probably the second most important in sheer scale. And for them to actually decide to build smartphones is not something they need. I mean, dude, ZTE owns hotels in China to move their employees around. That's how big the company is in China. And still, for them to build you know, for them to be in the market of building smartphones and to actually innovate, like in the case of the Exxon 7, man, I mean, to give you a $400 phone with the most amazing audio experience you can have, I feel that I love how companies are taking the experience of taking photography seriously.
Yeah.
The experience of giving you, I mean, who cares if you're an audiophile or not? You deserve, for the amount of money that you pay, to get a good experience in audio.
Yeah.
You deserve good battery life.
Agree.
You deserve good experience in using the screen and this and that, and stutter for your experience. I feel that I have to praise companies for taking your investment seriously. It's your money. You're going to spend 2 years with that phone.
Totally.
You know, so I love the approach that these companies are making. Again, Huawei has made an amazing shift in photography, ZT, in audio, OnePlus, and just the overall experience of using a smartphone. My God, that user interface is my favorite all time.
And getting to meet with someone, I mean, so these are people that you've worked with before in the past, and I finally got to meet the OnePlus 3 PR team. And being able to tell them point blank, like, I really didn't appreciate how you guys started promoting the company back during the OnePlus 1 days.
Yeah.
And being able to say, I think you guys have grown up significantly, and I'm very much more excited to talk about the OnePlus 3, seeing, you know, how you guys are promoting, how you guys are interacting with your community. Now I feel like you're a grown-up company now, and that you're taking this discussion more seriously.
But you know, it's cool when you have a good relationship with these companies up to the point where you learn their internals.
Yeah.
Like to learn how OnePlus is literally a startup.
Totally.
Like how they were literally a startup and how they came from nothing. Literally nothing, from a dream. I mean, their CEO, Carl Pei, is 27 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us could say that at 27, we have achieved building such a popular product?
Right.
Think about it, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I think of myself being 10 years older than the guy and being like, my God.
At 27, I had almost written a book on origami, and then I didn't.
Think about it. So, you know, I feel that all of us, you know, both listeners, viewers, and us particularly, we are all geeks.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but I have to feel proud of a company that's built from the ashes of nothing by young people like all of us that really want to make something different. I mean, I feel the concept of OnePlus, the concept of never settle, they are literally taking those words to heart. And, you know, these are not, sure, we have a great relationship with OnePlus, and I sat down with them yesterday, and I was like, I love everything except your camera. I'm sorry. You know?
I'm in like with their camera. I'm not in love with their camera.
It's good. It's just, you know, let's go back to the concept of never settle.
And let's see, you know, especially with the improvements they've made to other areas of the phone, a little polish would
So
be
these
nice.
are not shameless plugs because we have a good relationship with their PR teams. No. Their products are not perfect.
Right.
But still, I have to admit my admiration to a company that builds itself from zero into my favorite phone. Literally, if it wasn't for the Galaxy Note 7, rest in peace.
Right.
In 2016, my second favorite phone is literally between the Pixel and the OnePlus 3T.
Well, and that this last year, and I think CES kind of helped put a button on our coverage from 2016.
Yes.
Was like, Huawei as a company completely does not resemble the company they were 2 years ago.
Oh, no.
The improvements are mind-boggling from 2 generations ago.
You remember the conversation that I was having with you know, their VP?
Yeah.
I was telling them, oh my God, it is so amazing to come from a 5-year ago presentation of Huawei, where the CEO's arguments were all our product versus the competition.
Yeah.
Our product versus the competition. Our product versus the competition. And everything was our product versus the competition.
Right.
Today, Huawei is no longer in need.
Well, can you think of any other company over the course of 2 years who have who have done as good a job of nailing down what their brand identity is?
Yes.
I can't for the life of me think of any company that has managed that conversation, that outreach, and built that fan base organically.
Yes.
And has been as successful.
Yes.
And that is really exciting territory to talk about.
I have to commend it to Huawei as well. You know, the company, even if the Mate 9 is not a new product, you know, obviously this was the U.S. launch.
Yeah.
I feel, you know, they're like, yeah, we bring our flagship, and sure, a lot of people are going to argue, no, it's not. It doesn't have a Quad HD display. And I'm sorry, use the Mate 9. That's all I'm going to say. Just
or at least
use the phone.
Try and check it out. Try and get your hands on one. Because
try to check it out. Try to get your hands
impressed.
on one. I am very impressed by the phone so far. You don't need a Quad HD display. And that's just the way it is.
I would prefer,
of course,
but
so
it doesn't. It hasn't prevented me from getting an incredible amount of work done.
I'm sorry, but I would rather have a 1080p display with that insane battery and fast charging. I mean, let's just
the charging rate on that battery is scary fast.
Is insane. It is literally insane, and it doesn't explode.
Well, but I mean,
or at least not yet.
But have you felt it though? That's also what's impressive is the charger's so big
and it doesn't heat.
The phone doesn't get as hot.
Yes.
Again,
which is another thing that OnePlus did with dash charging.
Yes.
Oh my God, dash charging is like one of those things where you're like, the phone already has. One thing that I've noticed of Nougat really is just the optimizations in battery life.
Yeah.
Are, oh my God, like it's ridiculous how much the phone with best battery that I carry right now is a Pixel, and it's the smallest one I have in my pocket. I cannot believe how good that phone is in battery life, and everything has to do with Nougat.
It's like all the conversations that Google started back during Jelly Bean are now actually finally coming to fruition.
Jelly Bean, dude.
Remember they were talking like, oh, we're going to make it leaner, more efficient, we're going to improve battery life, and I don't really feel like that has been fully realized. Well, I mean, Marshmallow was a step in the right direction, but Nougat has taken that to a whole new level.
Yeah.
It's just such a shame now that so few phones have really been properly updated across all regions to get their new Nougat updates, and that's definitely something Google still needs to address.
So any product that you would recommend from what you saw on the show?
Well, again, a lot of the stuff that I was most interested in might not even ever fully be realized.
No. Let's move away from mobile and you.
So for me personally,
yes,
I am most excited to get my hands. I mean, obviously, I desperately want that Super 8 camera, but I'm most excited to get my hands on Kodak's version of a 360-degree 4K action camera.
Right.
They did a phenomenal job of making horizontal 360-degree video accessible to consumers.
Yeah.
That now, in a one-camera package, they're almost always well accessorized. Clips, mounts, adhesive pads, things like that, and that it'll play equally well between iOS, Android, and then you can edit directly from your PC with their own software. That to me is going to be something that I think will be a lot of fun to check out. The other one I do, because it's just, if we're just talking about me, you're going
to say the same thing that I'm going to say, but say it.
Oh, well, I'm going to say the most whimsical product that I got to play with at CES was the baselet.
Oh, yes.
This product is so niche, and the company knows they are not going to be widely mass market, appealing to all consumers and demographics. The $200 subwoofer you wear on your wrist was phenomenal to play with.
It was cool.
And that being someone who's into their audio, that is, I can't recommend it to anyone. But it's like, I want that so bad. I think it is flippin' sweet.
I can't recommend it, but please send me your review.
No, but I'm gonna throw it back. So if you guys are listening to this podcast, we did a short little video on it. I was really lucky to get to talk to the founder and inventor of the product. And there's a little clip. If you think I'm just sort of like mugging for the camera, because we're exhausted on the show floor, there's a little clip that I put in when you got to play with it.
Yeah.
And you can instantly see the look on your face when the thing kicks in. It was so genuine in that moment. You're not acting or anything like that. It is such a novel experience, and I love the idea of a company taking their first step and saying, no, this isn't something that everyone's gonna want. This is something that a specific consumer is gonna enjoy, and we wanna make the best possible version of it for that one consumer out there. Well, not that one consumer, but that one consumer base who is going to be interested in a service like this. And so I was totally sold. I thought it was a lot of fun. Totally frivolous, but a lot of fun.
So I'll give you two products that I would say were my favorites and that I would recommend. The first one, the Panasonic GH5.
Oh, right. I see where you're going there. That's probably going to be my next camera.
The Panasonic GH5. So I use a Sony a6300.
I use a Samsung NX30.
It's a good camera. I feel that Sony did an amazing job in actually being able to give you 6K and then downsample it to 4K and make it on a budget. I mean,
I think Samsung kind of pooped the bed with their camera strategy, and it left me in the lurch.
Yes. But, you know, I love Sony. I love their lenses.
Yeah.
The problem is that whoever designed the A6300, A6000, A6500 has never, ever had to film a video with it.
Nope.
I'm sorry, Sony designer, engineer. No disrespect, but please get your act together. Please go out there and try to film something from a YouTuber's perspective, which is the market you're trying to cater for. Your controls are terrible. Your menu system is terrible. And the fact that it doesn't have a touchscreen is just ridiculous in this day and age.
Well, and the flip-out LCD.
When you invented the NEX 5N that had all of these things.
Right.
I mean,
so it's not like you don't know.
I'm still scratching my head over how is it that this is the newer camera that performs better, that doesn't have the features that the older one did.
Right. Well, and then, like, what I see you go through every single time, you want to put yourself on camera, and you have to break out an external monitor.
It's a
You have to plug it all in. You have to set your focus, back up, go, you know, adjust the focus again, move back. And like, we had a couple people that were commenting on Twitter, like, oh, well, I could just pair my camera with my phone. And you guys don't, I mean, like, when you're on the show floor, and you've got people who are elbowing your tripods over, and you've got people who are stepping on your feet and trying to grab
at a phone.
The time it takes to link up your Wi-Fi, you're already out of the game.
Yes.
You're already out of the running. And I take my NX30 and I pop out the screen and I flip it around and I talk to the camera.
Yes.
And that's it.
The second thing is...
So GH5, super high on the list.
GH5. So the thing is, the person who designed the GH3, which then came the GH4, and now the GH5, that guy really knows what it's like to film.
Yeah.
That guy really knows what it's like
That is a video-focused camera.
Yes, where the controls are supposed to be, what indicators I want from the menu, where I want to access these, and to actually give me normal English to understand what these things mean.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm being rude, but I mean it.
No, because I mean, like, I feel like there's, I think Sony deserves, because I think they make some of the best cameras on the planet. I think Sony absolutely deserves every piece of recognition
for their sensor,
making,
yes,
for
their
lenses, making high quality products. But there is an arrogance to Sony, where it's almost like, well, if you don't get this or you don't understand what the setting is, then you're not smart enough to use this camera. And there's an accessibility there, you know? Like, a Sony camera doesn't really bring you into the experience as much as, like, you need to already be, like, well-trained and well-versed and ahead of the curve on that kind of education to use a Sony camera. Then you get to deserve to use a Sony camera.
I know. The only way where I feel that comment is contrasted is in the price tag of the A6300. $1,100 versus $1,700 in the GH4. And now GH5.
Oh, the GH5 is going to be, I think it's going to be a $2,000 camera.
Yes, I feel that it's too expensive, but it's kind of worth it if you're in our line of work.
Yeah.
The second product, believe it or not, is those LG Tone
HDs. Those are fun.
The ones you put in your neck.
The Studio.
Okay.
The
so
Tone Studio.
I have when I was many years ago, I kind of affected my left eardrum, and therefore I have problems whenever I'm watching TV. I'm that prick that asks you to please raise the volume a little more because I can't hear anything.
Right.
Sadly, that's me. And so for somebody to come up with a speaker that you can put on your neck that doesn't affect the experience from everybody else.
I mean, you can definitely hear it.
Noise,
but it's not like you've got like a Bluetooth speaker that's just like blasting the sound out in a direction.
Right. So I am a guy that needs extra audio, and this will allow me to let people enjoy TV at the volume that they want.
Right.
And for me to get the extra volume that I want.
Exactly.
And everybody's going to be just fine.
Totally.
I feel that I was like, why didn't anybody think of this? It's a cool idea. It's probably going to be a little on the expensive side, and it's definitely going to be a niche product.
But we're talking about all these things. I was plugging a $200 wrist-worn subwoofer. They're saying that the Tone Studio is going to land at $250.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like for speaker set and a pair of earbuds that connect wirelessly to your phone and have their own built-in DAC. LG's all about building in high-quality DACs. I kind of feel like that's not an insurmountable barrier to purchase.
Yeah.
Like, I think that brings a value and a unique experience. Because I'll tell you, when you put that thing on, it is so... It's disconcerting at first, because the speakers do such a great job of surrounding your head in audio,
yeah,
and blocking out stuff around you without putting anything on your ears.
Yes.
It's a very... I mean, for me, it was a moment of being very unsettled that it was working the way it was,
yeah,
and then you kind of acclimate, and your brain goes, okay, you know, your head's not in a bubble, you're okay.
Yeah.
And then you go on, and it's like, oh, this is just a really cool experience.
I don't know. I feel that's a product that's going to be useful to me.
Absolutely.
In addition to the GH5. But that's...
Yeah, my picks were a lot more whimsical and frivolous. And I mean, I'm hoping we can play with that 360-degree camera, because I'd love to be doing some more stuff on YouTube with 360-degree video.
Hopefully, man.
I think that'd be really cool.
But anyways, that was CES for me, dude.
I think that was CES for me, too. I think it was a fun... Well, I got to say, taking it back to that original point, the show was amazingly well run, but it was so much fun being able to tackle the show with you and Hayato.
Yeah.
With the show being as well organized as it was.
Yes.
That this is the smoothest trade show experience I've ever had in my entire life. And I felt like we had some good commentary for the people that were watching our channel. So
definitely.
So I'll give you the no-look handshake.
Look on the road, man.
No, it's like, put your hand back on the steering wheel.
And here, this is to our carpool karaoke version of the Pocketnow Weekly. The once a week podcast. No, you do it. You're the one that knows it better.
Well, thank you for joining me on the show, man. I do really appreciate you doing this wrap-up chat.
It's a privilege. You never invite me.
I mean, the invitation's always open. You know what the trouble is? And seriously, like, in all seriousness, we'll give our viewers the inside baseball on how Pocketnow works. With Jules being overseas, we're trying to work out like what schedule is. We're recording at some really funky times to get that done.
You're playing at a time when I'm watching Friday After Dark on Cinemax, man.
Ooh, yeah. You know, you've heard there is this thing called the internet.
Oh.
Where you can acquire other materials. You don't have to wait for Skinemax to show you what you like to watch.
Oh my God.
And on that note, we should probably wrap this show up. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you all on the next episode of the Pocketnow Weekly.
Wasn't that a fun chat, folks? We should maybe try to have him on the show more often, methinks. Well, another episode of the Pocketnow Weekly has come and gone. Like CES, this show is over, but the conversation continues on Twitter, where you can find Jules as @PointJules, Jaime as Jaime_Rivera, and I'm humbly @SomeGadgetGuy. Pocketnow is around the web on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, and our home site, pocketnow.com. We're basically everywhere. Shows like this can't exist without your support, sharing the weekly with your friends who love mobile technology, and by dropping some reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and wherever podcast reviews can be left. The Pocketnow Weekly will be back next week with all kinds of delicious technology goodness, so make sure you tune back in.